Most Honda owners just buy the car, rack up the miles, and assume Honda engineering will just handle the rest. That mindset is exactly why I see perfectly good Civics, Accords, CR-Vs, and Pilots rolling into the shop way earlier than they should, with worn-out suspension parts and owners wondering where it all went wrong. To be honest, Honda suspensions don't usually fail because of bad design. They fail because of one small habit almost everyone ignores. Fix that habit, and you can double the life of your suspension without spending thousands. I've worked on Hondas with 60,000 miles that rode worse than others with 180,000. The difference was maintenance. Simple stuff that takes minutes. In this video, I'm going to break down what actually wears out your Honda's suspension, the early warning signs most people miss, and one overlooked step that keeps bushings, struts, and control arms alive way longer than Honda ever advertised. Some of these fixes cost less than lunch. One of them took under 5 minutes and saved my own Accord from a 4-figure repair. Number 6. Replace your worn-out bump stops before they destroy bigger parts. Here is a suspension part almost nobody talks about: bump stops. They are small, inexpensive, and hidden, but when they wear out, they can quietly wreck your Honda's suspension. Think of bump stops as emergency cushions. Their job is simple. When your suspension compresses hard, they prevent metal parts from slamming into each other. Without them, your struts and control arms take a direct hit. And metal-on-metal contact? That's expensive. Over time, bump stops dry out, crack, and crumble, especially in hot climates or places with harsh winters. Once they break down, your suspension bottoms out more often than it should. You might notice a harsh thud over bumps or feel like the car crashes instead of glides. That's your warning sign. So here is the problem. Most drivers replace struts but ignore the bump stops. That's like buying new running shoes but keeping worn-out insoles. The new parts won't last nearly as long. Every hard compression without a proper bump stop puts extra stress on the strut seals, mounts, and even ball joints. The fix? Inspect them anytime you are doing suspension work, or around the 80,000 to 100,000 mile mark. If they are brittle, cracked, or missing chunks, replace them. They are cheap compared to struts, and replacing them early can prevent a 4-figure repair later. Honda engineered your suspension with those cushions in mind. When they are fresh, everything works smoothly. But when they are gone, every bump becomes punishment. It's a small part with a big job. Replace your worn bump stops, and your Honda's suspension will stay quieter, smoother, and alive much longer than most people expect. Number 5. Check your ride height before it costs you. Ride height is just how high your Honda sits off the ground. Sounds basic, right? But when springs start to sag or suspension components wear unevenly, that height changes. And when it changes, everything underneath starts working harder than it should. Think of your suspension like a balanced table. If one leg gets shorter, the whole thing wobbles. The same thing happens when one corner of your Honda sits lower than the others. That uneven stance puts extra stress on struts, control arms, and bushings. Over time, that extra strain turns into noise, poor handling, and expensive repairs. So how do you check it? Firstly, you park on level ground. Then measure from the ground to the edge of the fender above each wheel. Compare all 4 corners. They should be very close. If one side is noticeably lower, especially front to back or left to right, something's wearing out. Sagging springs are common as mileage climbs. They lose tension slowly, so most drivers don't notice the change. But your alignment notices, your tires notice, and your suspension components definitely notice. Driving with uneven ride height also throws off suspension geometry. That means parts move at angles Honda never intended. More angle equals more stress. More stress equals shorter lifespan. Check ride height at least once a year or anytime your Honda starts looking uneven. It takes 10 minutes and a tape measure. Catching a weak spring early can prevent premature strut wear and save you from replacing multiple parts at once. Number 4. Always replace suspension parts in pairs. Here is something that catches a lot of Honda owners off guard. One side starts making noise, so they replace just that one part. Problem solved, right? Not exactly. Your Honda's suspension is designed to work in balanced pairs. Left and right shocks, left and right control arms, left and right sway bar links. They are built to respond evenly so the car stays stable, predictable, and smooth. When you replace only one worn component, you create an imbalance. One side is fresh and tight. The other side is older and weaker. That difference changes how your Honda handles bumps, corners, and braking. It might feel fine at first, but underneath, the uneven load starts stressing other components. Think of it like replacing one worn-out shoe. You wouldn't run a marathon with one brand new sneaker and one flattened, worn-down one. Your stride would be off. The same thing happens with your suspension geometry. For example, if one front strut is new and the other has 90,000 miles on it, the newer one will control movement better. The older one will allow more bounce. That uneven motion transfers stress into bushings, ball joints, and even your tires. Over time, you end up replacing more parts than you originally planned. The rule is simple. If one side fails due to wear, the other side is usually not far behind. Replacing both at the same time keeps handling balanced and prevents uneven strain. Yes, it costs a little more up front, but it protects your alignment, improves ride quality, and keeps the rest of your Honda's suspension from wearing out early. Number 3. Fix your tires before they wreck your suspension. If there is one thing quietly destroying Honda suspensions, it's the wrong tire setup. Most drivers never connect tires to suspension wear, but in the shop the link is impossible to miss. Two identical Hondas, same mileage, same roads. One rides tight and smooth, the other clunks and wanders. The difference is almost always tires. Here is why it matters. Your suspension isn't designed to absorb everything. Tires are the first line of defense. When they are the wrong type, wrong size, or improperly inflated, all that extra shock gets passed straight into the struts, control arms, bushings, and ball joints. Over time, that constant abuse shortens their lifespan dramatically. Low-profile tires are a big culprit. They look sporty, but with less sidewall to flex, they hit bumps harder. That extra impact goes straight into suspension components that were never meant to take it. Honda tuned your suspension assuming a certain amount of tire cushioning. Take that away, and parts wear faster. Plain and simple. Pressure matters just as much. Overinflated tires turn every crack in the road into a hammer blow. Underinflated tires flex too much, creating instability that stresses bushings and mounts. The sweet spot is the factory-recommended pressure listed on the driver's door jamb, not the number molded into the tire sidewall. Rotation is the final piece most people ignore. Unevenly worn tires cause uneven suspension loading. That pulls components in directions they weren't designed to go, accelerating wear on one corner at a time. Rotate your tires every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, ideally with oil changes. Get the tires right with proper size, correct pressure, and consistent rotation, and your Honda's suspension doesn't have to fight the road alone. Do this, and you'll be shocked how much longer everything underneath stays quiet, tight, and problem-free. Number 2. Keep your suspension joints properly lubricated. Your Honda's suspension has multiple pivot points like the ball joints, tie rod ends, and control arm joints. These parts move constantly. Every turn, every bump, every driveway entrance puts them to work. And metal parts that move without proper lubrication? They don't last long. Grease acts like a protective barrier. It reduces friction, pushes out moisture, and prevents dirt from grinding away at the joint from the inside. Without it, those joints start to dry out. Then comes the squeaking. After that, looseness. Eventually, full failure. Think of it like this. Rubbing your hands together is easy at first. Keep going long enough, and heat builds up. Now imagine sand in between. That's what happens inside an ungreased suspension joint. Some Hondas come with sealed joints that don't require service. But many older models, trucks, and certain aftermarket replacements have grease fittings, also called zerks. If yours has them, they need attention. A few pumps of quality chassis, grease every oil change or every 5,000 to 7,000 miles can dramatically extend their lifespan. Even if your components are sealed, regular inspections matter. Torn rubber boots allow grease to escape and dirt to enter. Once contamination starts, wear speeds up fast. Greasing suspension joints isn't flashy. It doesn't feel urgent, but it's one of those small maintenance habits that keeps everything tight, smooth, and quiet underneath your Honda. Number 1. Replace your shocks before they're completely worn out. Most drivers wait until the shocks are obviously bad before replacing them. By then, the damage was already spreading. Your shocks aren't just there for comfort. They control how your Honda moves. Every bump, every dip, every turn. They keep the tires planted and the suspension stable. When shocks start to wear out, they don't usually fail all at once. They slowly lose their ability to control movement. At first you might notice a little extra bounce. Maybe the front dips more when braking. Maybe the rear feels loose over uneven roads. It doesn't seem urgent, so most people ignore it. But here's what's really happening. Worn shocks allow excessive movement. That extra motion puts stress on control arm bushings, ball joints, sway bar links, and even your tires. Instead of absorbing energy smoothly, the suspension starts slamming into its limits more often. Over time, that added strain shortens the life of everything connected to it. Think of shocks like the discipline in the system. When they are strong, everything works in harmony. When they are weak, everything else has to work over time. Most Honda shocks last somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 miles depending on driving conditions. Rough roads, heavy loads, and aggressive driving wear them out faster. Don't wait for leaking fluid or loud clunks. By then, other parts may already be worn. If your Honda feels floaty, unstable, or bouncy, it's time to inspect them. Replacing shocks early keeps the rest of the suspension from taking unnecessary punishment. Swap them before they beg for mercy, and you won't just restore ride comfort. You will protect every component underneath and dramatically extend the life of your Honda's suspension.